Football. It's one of the greatest sports there is, right? Partly because it is always changing. It is ever evolving. New metas, whatever that is, are coming into play every single season. We don't tend to see 2 seasons the same, and that is because this sport is always evolving, and we are seeing new adaptations of the way that the game is approached. However, one thing that always still seems to stay in place in football is that you can win and ultimately lose a football match in the midfield. And right now for Erik ten Hag and Manchester United, it feels like we lose football matches in the centre of the park. There is always far too much space for the opposition to attack. And it doesn't matter who we put in there, it's still the same. It can be Ugarte, it can be Eriksen, it can be Mainu, Casemiro, whoever it is, the problems are still there. And that to me suggests that this is a structural problem from Erik ten Hag. So let's take a look. So we are of course talking about Manchester United out of possession, being too stretched, leaving too bigger gaps in the centre of the park. Why is that happening? Well, of course, as always, there's multiple reasons. We can't pin this to just one thing. One of the reasons that Manchester United are so stretched in midfield is because I still feel personally the high press isn't good enough. We don't work hard enough, we don't press with a great enough intensity. And that means our players end up high from our forwards point of view, but the midfielders are therefore left with a lot of space to cover. So that's one of the problems. Another one of the problems is that I still don't feel that our forwards work hard enough coming backwards and filling in gaps alongside our midfield. So once again, that gives our midfielders ground to cover. So that is a problem. The other problem though for me, and this is the main one, is that tactically, this is such a complex role that our 2 central midfielders have to play. They have to cover so many different areas, and it is all through tactical choice. So let's take a look at how that works. Let's say Manchester United are pressing in a 4-2-4 high pressing man-to-man shape, which we have seen at times this season, and at times it has worked reasonably well. It looks something like this. Bruno Fernandes is going to join Xerxes in the front 2, our 2 wingers will pick up the 2 fullbacks, and of course, inevitably therefore, our 2 central midfielders have to pick up the next 2 in midfield. We are man-to-man. Now what does a man-to-man marking system mean or entail? It means if I'm Ugarte and this is my man, I need to follow him. So if he goes over here, I'm going to follow him. If he goes over here, I'm going to follow him. And I'm not going to let him be free. I am responsible for this player. And we could see this early on, in the game against Spurs at the weekend. Just over a minute into the game, we've got our 2 central midfielders here. Now initially, we can't straight away tell that they are playing man-to-man. However, there is an early signal, and that is here. As James Maddison moves a little bit deeper, Ugarte follows him. Now there is nothing wrong with this in principle, but it is just that first signal that we are man-to-man in the middle. Maddison drops, so Ugarte goes with him. We've also got it on the other side of the pitch as well. Again, 2 central midfielders in the middle. We're going to see Kulusevski drop a little bit deeper, and Kobbie Mainoo follows him. This tells us once again that we are in fact man-to-man in the middle of the pitch. And again, in principle, this isn't a massive issue. It's fine to play man-to-man in the middle. However, I'm not a massive fan of it happening whilst we have literally no pressure on the ball. So this is problem number 1 for United. We are playing this approach where the midfielders are dragged about a lot, but we don't actually get enough pressure on the ball at times, which therefore creates a bit of a problem. We're too easy to drag about. Now that in isolation is a problem for Manchester United, but it is a fairly solvable one. You can tweak the system, you can apply more pressure higher up the pitch, and therefore the problems should kind of be removed a little bit. But unfortunately, this isn't an isolated thing, because the tactical roles for our midfielders gets even worse from here, and actually more complicated and more complex and more physically demanding, particularly when Manchester United move to more of a hybrid pressing structure. What does that look like? Let's say the ball will be with the centre back here. We will see Xerxes move towards him, our centre forward, and then what we will see is our far side winger coming in like this. Let's say the goalkeeper's now got the ball. Marcus Rashford will come in from the left-hand side into this position here. Bruno Fernandes will be probably marking a pivot in this sort of position here. And what's going to happen is this pass becomes available for the opposition. Therefore, hello midfielders, introduce yourselves. You've now got a lot of work to do. Kobbie Mainoo has to get over here and apply pressure on this side, and Ugarte has to fill in. It can also happen the other way as well. Let's say the goalkeeper's got the ball, Xerxes is here, Garnacho is here. Because we don't reliably or regularly connect our fullbacks to the press, as the ball goes, our midfielders have to get out here. So this is problem number 1. First of all, we're playing man-to-man. That's complex enough, right? It's difficult to do. Now we've got a situation where they're also trying to play a hybrid role as well, which again, in terms of the intensity, is extremely difficult. And once again, you guessed it, we saw this against Spurs, 30 seconds into the game. Marcus Rashford is coming in from the left-hand side towards Romero, the right centre-back. On this occasion, Xerxes is in midfield, and Bruno Fernandes is the other member of the front two with Marcus Rashford. Rashford continues to come inside, applies pressure, and the ball, therefore, for the opposition can be moved out wide to the right back. And because Rashford is high, the fullback is now open, which means Kobbie Mainoo has to come over and cover that space. Again, it's difficult. Physically, that's demanding. And you can also see the first element, this is 35 seconds into the game, the first element of confusion coming into the team a little bit, because both Ugarte and Lisandro Martinez have seen that as the trigger to step on to Kulusevski. It shouldn't be two of them. So that is the first sign of confusion. And that happens when you play several different systems and ask your midfielders to do a lot of different jobs. This also happens on the other side of the pitch as well. We can see it here. This time Xerxes is very much the striker. Bruno is tied up in midfield. Garnacho is pressing the other centre-back. And what you're going to notice is that Ugarte feels he has to follow the fullback. This is Udogie he is now following. He is moving into this wider position to track him, to chase him. That is now his man. But actually the ball goes the other way. The ball goes to the right-hand side because United aren't intense enough with the pressure. So the ball goes to the other side, and now poor old Kobbie Mainoo and Ugarte have to make their way across the other side of the pitch. Again, physically, this is incredibly demanding. We have a Manchester United squad full of players that excel in small spaces. We are asking them to cover massive gaps at times. So far, it looks like the job for our midfielders is quite difficult out of possession. They have to cover a lot of ground. But it's actually going to get worse, because even when they aren't actually a part of the pressing structure, they still have to do a lot of the work for the forwards. They have to kind of mop up behind them a little bit and protect them when they make mistakes. For example, when the ball is moved across the opposition defence quickly and our winger gets caught out, perhaps gets beaten too easily down this side of the pitch, guess who is now responsible for coming across and dealing with that? You guessed it, again it's going to be our central midfielders. So far we have seen our central midfielders responsible for going man for man in the middle. We've seen them responsible for pressing a fullback up here, but now they are also responsible for not just pressing a fullback, but actually tracking the opposition fullback into these positions as well. And again, we've got an example of this. Garnacho's caught a little bit high. Udogie is able to carry the ball forward, and therefore he has a lot of space to go into. A lot of space. There is no protection from the winger. The fullback hasn't connected, and as a result, poor old Ugarte is the one who has to go across and make the tackle. He had to go into these sorts of positions here. And you can see, if United weren't to win this ball, look how much space there is in the middle of the pitch. Kobbie Mainoo hasn't got over yet, and again this is 17 minutes into the game. We should still be fresh and full of energy, but because our midfielders are asked to do so much, it's impossible. This actually also carries on into deeper phases of the pitch as well, when United are actually defending our own third. You can see again Ugarte here is the one responsible for coming out to close down Udogie, and the reason for that is because Garnacho doesn't look particularly interested on this occasion. Even as it plays on a couple of seconds, still incredibly passive. He's not even goal side yet. He's still not particularly interested. And as a result, we're a man down. We're 3v2 in this situation. It's our fullback and again our central midfielder. The amount of different jobs that our midfielders have to do makes it incredibly difficult for them to ever really play with a great intensity for 90 minutes. Because they have to be so intense for the first 30 minutes, they're tired by the 40th, let alone the 60th and the 80th. And when you're a tired footballer, you make mistakes. You make mistakes defensively, you dive into tackles, you get a little bit lazy, you kick out at people. Perhaps you give away free kicks. That's a problem. But you also make mistakes with your positioning. Because again, you are tired. When footballers are tired, they make worse decisions. But it also applies on the ball as well. Technically, you lose that cleanness, if you like, on the ball. That easy on the eye work that you have when you're fresh and full of energy. You're kind of buzzing about the pitch, you're alert, you're ready to go. Again, you get fatigued as the game goes on, particularly in a system that is so open and requires so much work. Now add on to that the fact that United lose the ball a lot. Because we play quite a direct style, we overturn possession regularly. So these midfielders are having to do so much work. So much work, it is absolutely ridiculous. I have seen criticism for Kobbie Mainoo early in the season. I think it's absurd. I've seen criticism for Ugarte. Do I think he's had a great start? No. Do I think any midfielder could perform the current role defensively? No, because I don't think our forwards help enough, and I don't think our defenders help enough, and that leaves our midfielders having to do so much work. The midfielders are not the ones to blame. When we have tried several different players in there now, and it still doesn't work, that tells me that this is a structural problem, this is a problem from the manager or players elsewhere, or in this case, a combination of both. So don't be too harsh on the central midfielders themselves. They might be struggling right now, but they are being set up for failure. by their teammates and their manager. So cut them a little bit of slack. Ten Hag has work to do. He has to fix this. There has to be a solution to this problem. Can he find it? We'll have to wait and see. But in my opinion, this is the problem for Manchester United off the ball. It's not the fact that we want to be in a high press or the fact that we want to be in a mid block. It's the fact that we are always caught between one or the other. We are not consistent in what we do. And the midfielders in particular have so much ground that they have to cover, and it makes life impossible. Impossible. Those are my thoughts. That's my opinion. Let me know yours in the comments down below. But apart from that, we are finished for today. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.